The latest reports say that the daily number of people testing positive for COVID has increased by about 25%. And since schools are either open or about to reopen, it's really anyone's guess what's going to happen. Now, many people want to compare the leadership of different countries and say, well, country A did better than country B because their leaders made better decisions. But I'm going to tell you right now why anyone who says that has absolutely no idea what they're talking about, and that's for three main reasons. The first reason is that countries have totally different variables from one another, and it makes it almost impossible to compare because you're comparing apples to oranges. You might have a country that has a very, very different social culture or work culture. People might either stand very close or far apart. They might hug, they might kiss, they might shake hands, they might bow. These are very, very important factors which would affect the spread of a communicable disease. But there's also other things like weather patterns. Are they getting enough sun? Do they maybe live on a beach where they're getting tons of vitamin D? Do they live on a mountain where the air is thinner and it's going to affect their lungs? Is their diet very high in vitamin C or some other kind of mineral or nutrient? Do they prescribe hydroxychloroquine, or do they have some other kind of therapy? What's their access to healthcare? How many ventilators? There's so many different factors, and so it's almost impossible, if not outright impossible, to accurately compare one country to another and say that, well, their leaders are better or worse. Even within countries like the United States, which is a very large country, different states are doing better than other states. And so you'd want to maybe compare the leaders and say, well, this governor was better than that governor. But again, many factors, almost impossible, if not actually impossible to compare. The second reason is that we're still in the middle of this pandemic, and so there's no way to know if the decisions we've made will ultimately be good or be bad, because only hindsight will provide that clarity of vision. There could be a second wave or a third wave. The vaccine could flop, or it could make things worse. People could not take the vaccine. All of these things will also affect how we make future decisions, because if we think we're on the right track, we'll maybe make certain decisions and not make others. But it might turn out that those group of decisions were actually worse because, again, only hindsight will allow us to say what actually was the best decision or the best course of action. If you look at Sweden versus Canada versus the United States versus Russia versus India, they all have very, very different reactions and different responses to the pandemic. They've put different rules on their population. They have different infection rates and fatality rates and different cultures. So there's a lot there to compare, and it's almost impossible to do so in a fair and accurate way. The last one is the scientific angle, and that's really based on a couple things. And that is, first, the initial advice from experts. In the beginning, we were all told, okay, let's stay home, let's flatten the curve. I'm sure you all remember that. There were tons of signs out there, flatten the curve, hashtag flatten the curve. That was based on the logic that we're all going to basically get COVID, or there's no real way to stop us from all getting COVID. The only thing that we can do is stay home so we don't all get it at the same time and overload our healthcare system. You may recall those graphs that went super high and then crashed back down, as opposed to the sort of slow and low bumps that the flattening the curve was supposed to do, which, again, that's what it actually meant, flattening the curve. So somehow that has transformed in a lot of people's minds into stay home, wear a mask, put a lot of hand sanitizer. You can somehow either not get it at all until it goes away, or not get it until there's a vaccine. Now, if there's information that caused that perception to change, if the flattening the curve idea was not a good idea, and there's information that caused it to change, what was that information and what caused it to change? Does anyone have all of that? Could it change again if that was the case? There's also the issue of testing to put an end to this pandemic. Now, people, for example, if you want to go get a test, you'd have to go to a testing center, you got to get a swab done, it might take a day or two for them to get back to you. In the meantime, you have to quarantine. That is a pretty high accuracy but low speed test. There are tests out there, or there are tests that are going to come out that are lower accuracy but much quicker. So there's a 1-minute test. That one I've read anywhere provides between 70 to 90, so let's just say 80% accuracy as to whether or not you have COVID. Now, think about it this way. If you have two armies that are fighting, and one army shoots with 100% accuracy and the other shoots with only 80% accuracy, who's going to win? The only question is, how many soldiers does each side have? So if one side has few soldiers that shoots at 100% accuracy and the other side has tons of soldiers that shoots at 80% accuracy, they're going to miss some shots, but because there's more soldiers making more shots, you're going to connect with more targets and therefore defeat the other side, which has perfect accuracy. This is kind of how you can think of those tests. Imagine that there were tests that you can get at home, something like a saliva test or a little breath test that you would take either every day or multiple times a day. even if that's only 80% accurate, because you're being tested so often, it's going to still give you a really good picture of what is going on, and you're going to be able to make better decisions. So if you got a test that was accurate on day 1, you could stay home and then test yourself again later that day or the next amount of days and see if you've got over the virus and what you should do about it. So all of these things, the amount of testing that they're going to put in, the different variables in different countries, the fact that we're still in the middle of the pandemic makes it impossible to compare one country to another. And all that's happening is that people are using this pandemic for many other things, but in this particular aspect, they're using it for political points or to be able to attack people, to attack Donald Trump or to attack others, other political leaders. And that really makes no sense because it ignores a number of the things that I've just mentioned. So the key factor is a lot of different variables, a lot of different things to think about. And with all things, it's really the same thing. And that's what hopefully you come away from this video understanding, that things are often much more complicated than they seem. So hopefully this video was educational and you enjoyed it. For True North, I am Sam Eskenasi. I hope you have a great day and thank you so much for watching.